am the Urban Domestic Diva, and actually I am standing next to this really cool thing my husband did, where he made this shadow box for some of the pie awards I have won for the past couple of years, and I'm really proud of them, and I thought I would share with you some really easy tips and techniques on how to make that perfect award-winning pie crust, no matter what fruit you have in the center. So let's head over to my humble urban kitchen and we'll get started. So what I have here is some flour and baking powder that I've kind of whisked together, and as you can see, I'm using a pastry cutter. You can certainly do this in a food processor, and I have done that many a time. But what I found is that actually when I do things by hand, it doesn't really take that much longer. It takes a little bit more elbow grease, but I don't overwork the dough as much. I think when the food processor does my crusts, I tend to overwork it. So I've come to really just use my pastry cutter and cut in the butter by hand. And you can do either way, whatever's comfortable for you. I will say that the past 2 apple pie contests that I have done, where I've won, I've done them by hand. So I don't know, maybe there's something to it. But so here's my flour and baking powder, and I've cut up my butter. Now there's lots of shortening approaches that people like. Some people swear by lard, some people just use butter, some people do a combo of butter and vegetable shortening. I've tried all different kinds of shortenings, and I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to do mostly butter, but I'm going to be adding something else, which I will tell you in a minute. But, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut this in with our pastry cutter, and just kind of get your work out and push that butter in and mush it around until the butter is the size of small peas. It takes about, I want to say 7 to 10 minutes. And I'll show you what the peas look like here in just a bit. So as you can see here, this only took about 5 minutes, so it really isn't that big of a deal to do things by hand. And you can see that it's got this coarse cornmeal texture, and you can see the little nubs of butter. That's what you're looking for, those nubs of butter, to make your crust really tender. And now I'm going to add my second kind of shortening, and I'm going to use mascarpone cheese. You can use cream cheese, you can do all butter. Like I said, you could do part vegetable shortening, part butter. This mascarpone cheese idea came from Rose Berenbaum's Pie and Pastry Bible, and it is the combo that I've been using for the past couple years in my apple pie entries for the parish contest that I've been winning first place for. So we're adding the mascarpone, and what's nice about the mascarpone is you have to use less water to get your dough to come together. It's got some nice moisture to it. And just kind of mush it all up in there. It also gives a nice sweetness to the dough and a nice nutty flavor. So you're going to work that all in. It's going to start to come together, but not quite. You're still going to need a little bit of water, which will be our next step. So it's still looking really crumbly as you mush up that mascarpone in there, and you'll want to use your other hand to kind of work and loosen your pastry cutter. And as you can see now, it's really crumbly. Once you get it kind of evenly crumbly, almost like a topping for a fruit crumble, it's ready for your ice water. Now you still want to work as quick as possible. Everything's still feeling pretty cold, and you want to keep things as cold as possible to keep those butter nubs from melting. You want to keep as much little nubs of shortening in your dough. So the next step is getting some ice water in there. So let's get that. putting about 2 teaspoons of water in. And I'm going to start to kind of get this stuff coming together. And it's going to start, you want it to just start to come together. And then we're going to pour it into some saran wrap to finish forming it into a disc. And there's one other thing I'm going to just sprinkle in here. It's a little trick. Like I said, I was making a caramel apple pie. So what I use is, can you see that? It's some caramel flavoring syrup. It gives a deeper caramel flavor to the dough. Now, depending on what you're making, this would be a bad idea. Like, I don't know if this would work for a cherry pie or a strawberry pie. In fact, I don't think it would. You can see things are coming together. When things are starting to come together, this is where I don't want to really touch it with my hands anymore. I want to put it into some saran wrap and work it that way. Okay, so as you can see, I've got some medium-sized saran wraps. One's for the top crust, one's for the bottom, right? And I'm going to divide this up evenly in its crumbly state onto the 2. I can smell that caramel sauce. That's syrup, I mean. Sorry, not sauce. And the reason why I'm doing it this way, and this is again from the Pie and Pastry Bible. In fact, I've probably touched it too much according to Rose, who's very, very strict about the way she makes her crusts. But as you can see here, I'm going to start to knead it. And the saran wrap just helps things stay a little cooler, and the heat of my hands isn't going to melt that butter. And I can move a little quicker. So you see what I'm doing here? I'm kind of kneading it and mushing it with the saran wrap. And I'm not going to overwork it, because at this point what I'm going to do is mush it into a big pile and wrap it up. See what I did there? And now I'm going to shape it into that disc I was talking about. And there we go. There's one crust right there. Let's do the same thing with this one. Mush. Using the saran wrap is kind of your helping you work it. The rest time. You want these to rest for about 30 minutes to an hour in the fridge. At this point, while I'm waiting on that dough to kind of rest a little bit, I make myself a foil ring. And have it ready and waiting. And what I do is I put some tin foil on the table, flip over my pan. This is my well-loved Teflon pan. As you can see, it's been through a lot, but I love it. Hopefully it'll stay around a while. And I'm just going to cut. I'm going to kind of use my nail to kind of make a template. You're going to cut about 1 inch around your pan. See, I'm poking a hole in the middle here. So I'm going to make it a ring. So I'm going to cut, it's not like a donut. It's going to fit your pan. I bought a foil ring up in Michigan when I was making some peach pies. And it fits a perfect 9-inch pan, but it doesn't fit this puppy. If you've got an odd shaped or like a nice Teflon pan, those store-bought foil rings aren't going to really fit. So that's why I make one. So this is going to be ready to go. So I'll keep this near the oven. So now I've had my dough in the fridge. Now the thing about doing that is now it's hard, right? So I've had it sitting out for about 5 to 8 minutes so that it's just softened up a little bit and good to work with. The other thing that I've been doing, so while this has been sitting out and warming up just a touch, I've laid out 2 big pieces of saran wrap and lightly dusted it with flour. Not a lot, just a little. We're gonna put our dough smack dab in the middle right there. We're gonna reuse this on top. Use very light flour on top. And then take one more piece of saran wrap. See what I said about saran wrap? You need a lot of saran wrap. And you've got your disc and you've got your pan nearby so that you can measure. What you're going to want to do is start rolling this out to about the same size as your pan with about an inch overhang. And you kind of start in the middle and then work yourself out. You want to use even pressure when you're rolling your dough. At this point, check and see what you got. It's a little weird. I'm a little short on some sides, so what I'll probably do is do some patching. As you can see, I'm short here, I'm going to be short here, so I can grab some of that extra overhang and kind of do some patching. Not ideal, but it's not for a contest, right? So, we're going to lift these 2 pieces off. And we are going to gently take this bottom saran wrap. And this is what's great about our saran wrap now. It's going to make flipping this dough into our pan super easy. So, take your pan, gently put it on top, take your hand and scoot it under till you can feel the bottom of that pan and then flip. See how easy that was? And then scoot, 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 scoot. And then gently nudge it in there. And you can lift your saran wrap out. Now, usually when I'm doing a leafy crust, I actually do all the leaves the night before, and then the next morning, you know, they've rested all night, I do my leafy top, I assemble it all, and then bake it off. So we're not going to do anything that fancy tonight. We're just going to do just a simple crust. So this is ready to go in the fridge to rest with the bottom. Just going to just slip a baking sheet right under there. Before you get your oven going, there's a couple things that I do. First, I make sure one of my racks is at its lowest point in the oven. And sometimes if you can't do that, you can just actually cook right on the bottom of your oven. The other thing that I do is I take a baking sheet, not an insulated one, just an old beat up metal baking sheet, and I line it with parchment. And I lay it on that rack, or if you're using the bottom of your oven directly, just lay it right there. And this baking sheet does a couple things. It acts as a baking stone for your pie. So it'll sear the bottom and prevent sogginess, which we don't want. The parchment's there to just catch any drips and not make a mess. And you don't want to use tin foil on the bottom of that because tin foil does affect heat. So I use parchment, something that's pretty much benign for heat conductivity.